They thought the moon had claimed her forever. But destiny doesn't end in death. It begins where light meets the dark. Now, her son carries the flame she left behind, and the world will soon learn that the moon's heir has awakened. The first light of dawn kissed the horizon, yet the world still shimmered with moonlight. Aaron stood alone on the silent cliffs, silver fire dancing in his eyes, the whispers of his mother echoing in the wind. The earth beneath him hummed with an ancient rhythm, her rhythm calling him toward the destiny she had left unfinished. In the distance, the Alpha King watched from the shadows, his heart heavy with regret and awe. The moon had revealed her truth, and now, father and son stood on opposite sides of fate, bound by the same light that refused to fade. Hello, Moonlight family. Welcome back to Moonlight Romance Stories. If you're new here, don't forget to like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic stories filled with betrayal, power, and transformation. And to all my loyal viewers, thank you for always lighting up the Moonlight world with your support. The story is not over. The words lingered in the air like a whisper carried by the dawn. Aaron's silver eyes still burned with lunar fire, casting faint ripples of light across the valley below. The wind trembled as if the moon itself breathed through him. Around him the ruins of the ancient altar shimmered faintly, the ground pulsing with the same rhythm as his heartbeat. Somewhere in the distance, the night surrendered to morning, but the moon refused to fade, hovering stubbornly in the pale sky, watching him. Aaron dropped to his knees, his breath uneven, his body trembling from the surge of power that had awakened within him. He could still feel her, his mother, her warmth, her sorrow, her endless love. She was gone, yet she wasn't. Her presence lingered like the soft hum of a forgotten lullaby. "Mother," he whispered, the word breaking as it left his lips. The silver flame in his eyes flickered, dimmed, then steadied again, alive with her essence. From the shadows beyond the altar, the Alpha King watched. His eyes, once proud and cold, were now haunted by regret. Every echo of that word mother pierced through him like the claws of his own guilt. He had abandoned her. He had denied their son. And now the truth stood before him, wrapped in moonlight and defiance. The air shifted suddenly. A faint howl rose from the forest below, a long, mournful sound that carried both pain and promise. The moon's chosen had been marked. The packs would soon know. The prophecy whispered by the elders had come alive, and the air of light and blood had awakened. Aaron lifted his head, the wind lifting his silver-streaked hair. "If her story isn't over," he murmured, voice low and resolute, "then neither is mine." The ground beneath him pulsed again, and the markings of the moon, those faint glowing sigils, spread along his arms like liquid light. The Alpha King stepped forward, the weight of unspoken years pressing on his chest. But before he could speak, the silver wolf appeared at the edge of the clearing, eyes glowing, fur glistening with starlight. It lowered its head not in submission but recognition. Aaron met its gaze, and in that instant, something ancient passed between them. An understanding, a bond older than blood. The king froze. The wolf was the sign the elders had spoken of, the guardian of the moon's heir, and now it bowed to his son. Aaron rose slowly, the silver fire in his eyes burning brighter than ever. The moonlight danced around him, threads of destiny weaving in the air. "The story is not over," he repeated, this time with strength. "It's only beginning." And as the sun rose behind the mountains, the great silver wolf howled again, its cry carrying across the land, a herald to every pack that the balance had shifted, and that the heir of the moon was ready to rise. The silver wolf's howl still echoed through the morning sky, long after its body had vanished into the mist. The sound clung to the Alpha King's mind like a curse, a haunting melody that refused to fade. He stood at the edge of the clearing, his heart heavy with the weight of all he had lost. The air still shimmered faintly with the moon's light, and every flicker of it burned against his conscience. He saw her face again, the woman he had betrayed. Her eyes, once soft with love, now gazed back at him from the depths of memory, filled with sorrow and unspoken forgiveness. He had left her to suffer alone, blinded by pride, chained by the expectations of a throne. Now, her son stood beneath the moon, carrying the power that once flowed through her veins. The light that should have united them now divided father and son. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw Aaron, the boy's silver gaze piercing through his soul, carrying both his mother's warmth and her wrath. He had denied his own blood, and the moon, merciful and merciless, had revealed the truth before the world. The king turned away from the cliffs, his boots sinking into the damp earth. He felt the tremor of the land, as though even the soil resented his presence. In the distance, his pack was restless. Rumors had begun to spread, that the heir of the moon had risen, that the king's sin had taken flesh, and now walked beneath the same sky. Some called it a blessing. Others called it the beginning of the end. That night, he returned to his chamber, but rest eluded him. Shadows danced across the walls, forming her silhouette again and again. Her voice echoed softly, not in accusation, but in longing. "You could have saved us." He covered his face with trembling hands, the once mighty Alpha now reduced to a man tormented by ghosts. "Forgive me," he whispered into the silence. But the silence did not answer. Then, a flicker of silver light glowed near the window. The moon hung low, almost watching him. For a moment he thought he saw her there, standing within the light, her gaze tender, sorrowful. "It's too late to undo the past," the vision seemed to say, "but not too late to protect what remains." The king's breath caught. His chest ached as realization washed over him. The prophecy was not a punishment. It was a chance. If the moon had spared his son, perhaps there was still redemption left for him. He rose from his seat, his reflection in the window shifting as if the man he once was stared back in judgment. "If destiny has chosen my son," he murmured, "then I will not stand against him, but I will not lose him again." Outside, the wind howled like a chorus of spirits. The moon's light brightened, casting a silver path across the valley, a road that led straight toward the ancient forest. The king clenched his fist. He knew where he must go. The journey toward redemption had begun. And somewhere beneath that same moonlit sky, Aaron lifted his gaze and as though he too could feel his father's steps returning toward fate. The night was heavy with silence, yet the air vibrated with unseen power. Somewhere beyond the forests, the Alpha King followed the silver path laid before him, while miles away, Aaron sat before the flickering embers of a dying fire, his silver eyes reflecting the moon above. The connection between them pulsed faintly, like two heartbeats echoing across time. Neither spoke the other's name, yet both felt the call of something greater, the pull of destiny tightening around their souls. In the valley below, the elders gathered in the sacred circle of stones, their white robes glimmering faintly beneath the lunar glow. For the first time in generations, the moon shone brighter than the sun's promise of morning. The eldest among them, Elder Kale, raised his hand, and the murmurs faded into stillness. His eyes, clouded by age yet sharp with knowledge, turned skyward. "It begins again," he whispered, his voice trembling with awe and fear. "The silver blood has awakened." A low hum rippled through the stones, ancient runes igniting with pale fire. The others leaned forward, listening. Kyle drew a deep breath and continued, his words heavy with history and warning. "The prophecy of the moon's child speaks of one born between worlds, light and shadow, love and betrayal, whose blood carries the power of balance. When the packs are divided and the throne is stained with guilt, the moon will mark her chosen through flame and sorrow. And from that child's cry, a new reign shall rise." A hush fell upon them. The younger seers exchanged anxious glances. "You mean the boy?" one whispered. "The one they say bears the queen's light?" Cale nodded slowly. "He is the bridge between what was broken, but the bridge can either mend or collapse beneath the weight of pride." Far away, Aaron stirred. The markings on his arms shimmered faintly, reacting to the words spoken miles beyond his hearing. His wolf, the silver guardian, lifted its head, ears twitching, as if it too sensed the ancient chant awakening in the night. Aaron's dreams came alive with visions, flashes of moonlit temples, armies bowing in unison, and a voice echoing through eternity. "The blood of the moon shall bind the broken and burn the false." He gasped awake, the prophecy's echo still in his veins. Meanwhile, the Alpha King rode through the mist, unaware that his return had already been foretold. The moon watched over both, the fallen king and the rising heir, two halves of a story that fate refused to end. At the sacred circle, Elder Cale's voice rose one final time, his tone trembling like wind through old trees. "When the silver blood claims its light, the world of wolves will kneel or burn." Lightning flickered across the horizon, though no storm followed. The moon's glow intensified, painting the earth in silver fire. Somewhere in the forest, Aaron's eyes opened again, brighter, sharper, divine. The prophecy had found its living vessel, and the first to challenge it would soon rise from the shadows. The night air grew colder, yet Aaron felt heat surge beneath his skin. The faint shimmer on his arms from the night before began to spread, twisting into shapes he had never seen before. Ancient symbols, glowing silver and alive with motion. Each sigil pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, as though the moon itself was carving her language into his flesh. He gasped, clutching his forearm as light flared brighter. The silver wolf beside him growled softly, not in fear, but reverence. Its glowing eyes mirrored Aaron's marks, and with each pulse the forest around them stirred, the trees whispering, the wind humming the same ancient melody the elders once chanted. "What's happening to me?" Aaron whispered, his breath shallow. The markings crawled up his neck, curling around his collarbone like bands of living moonlight. They did not hurt, but they carried power, raw, unrelenting, and divine. He felt his senses sharpen. He could hear the rustle of deer miles away, the flutter of wings high above, and beneath it all, the faint echo of a woman's voice, soft, guiding, eternal. "You bear my light, my truth. Let it show you what others hide." It was his mother's voice. The same whisper he'd heard at the altar, now clearer, closer. His heart clenched. "Mother," he breathed. "I can feel you." The wolf tilted its head, ears flicking toward the darkness. Something moved beyond the trees, silent, calculated. Aaron's sigils brightened instantly, their glow turning sharp and alert. The air thickened, the forest's hum turned to warning. Then a figure stepped from the shadows, one of the royal guards. His scent carried deception. His heartbeat betrayed unease. "Prince Aaron," the man said, lowering his head. "The king sent me to bring you home." Aaron's marks blazed brighter. His instincts screamed, "You lie." The guard froze, startled. "What?" The sigils flared violently, casting a beam of silver light that sliced through the darkness. The truth uncoiled like a serpent, images flooding Aaron's mind. The guard kneeling before rival alphas, plotting betrayal, his orders twisted with deceit. Aaron stumbled back, gripping his chest as the visions faded. The man's face paled. How did you?" Aaron's eyes glowed with calm fire. "The moon shows me what hides in shadow." The guard turned to flee, but the wolf stepped forward, a low growl rumbling from its throat. Aaron raised his hand slightly, and the sigils on his palm shifted again, calming the creature. "Let him run," he said softly. "The truth will follow him wherever he goes." As the man disappeared into the dark, Aaron looked down at his glowing arms, the patterns now still. The markings had spoken. They reacted to danger, to lies, to imbalance. They were not just a sign. They were a covenant. Far away, the Alpha King rode beneath the same moonlight, his own dreams filled with visions of the same sigils burning on his son's skin. He awoke with a start, his breath ragged, and whispered into the night, "The moon has claimed him." Above them both, the moon glowed brighter, its silver light spilling across the world like prophecy fulfilled. And in its glow, unseen by either, an old power stirred, watching, waiting, and whispering from beyond the veil. The wind shifted, cold, sharp, and heavy with whispers. As the moon's silver glow deepened, unseen eyes turned toward it, some in awe, others in fear. Across the realms of wolf and man, tales began to spread like wildfire. They spoke of a presence walking beneath the moon's path, a woman cloaked in silver light, her steps leaving no trace, her eyes brighter than stars. Some called her a spirit. Others dared to whisper the unthinkable. The queen has returned. Aaron felt it before he heard the rumors. His dreams grew vivid, filled with fragments of her laughter, her touch, the lullaby she once sang beneath the same moon that now watched him. When he woke, her scent lingered in the air, soft jasmine and rain. The silver wolf often rose before him at dawn, staring into the horizon as though expecting her arrival. But the elders spoke cautiously. In the Temple of Stones, Elder Kale gathered his council. The ancient fire flickered, painting their faces in shades of dread. "The prophecy speaks of her spirit guiding the air," Kale said gravely. "But what if her spirit did not rest? What if she was chosen again, to guard what the moon birthed through sorrow?" The younger elder shivered. "You mean she walks among us?" Kyle nodded slowly. "Not as the woman she once was, but as the guardian she was destined to become. The moon does not waste what is sacred." That same night, deep within the misted woods, the shadows thickened. The trees bowed slightly, the earth trembling under a soft hum that pulsed like a heartbeat. From that glow stepped a figure, barefoot, veiled in light. Her hair cascaded like liquid silver, her presence both tender and terrifying. Her eyes opened and the forest stilled. She looked toward the mountains where Aaron rested, a faint smile curving her lips. "My son," she whispered, her voice like wind through the leaves. "The time has come." Miles away, Aaron startled awake. His markings blazed to life again, burning with warmth rather than fire. The wolf lifted its head and howled softly, as if answering an unseen call. He looked up at the moon, and for a fleeting instant he saw her face reflected there. "Mother," he breathed. But it wasn't a dream. Her image lingered in the light, surrounded by silver mist. She raised her hand, not to reach for him but to protect. The markings on Aaron's skin mirrored her gesture, glowing in unison. The power between them hummed across space and time, a bridge between worlds. In the royal citadel, the Alpha King felt the same pull. His heart tightened as her scent, one he thought forever lost, filled the cold air of his chamber. He turned toward the window, eyes wide. It cannot be. The torches flickered. The moonlight deepened, and faintly, as if spoken from beyond the stars, came her whisper. "Your throne was bought with love's betrayal, but the moon's mercy has not forgotten you." The king dropped to his knees, trembling. The shadow of the forgotten queen had returned, not as a ghost to haunt him, but as the moon's chosen guardian to rewrite the fate they once defied. And as her presence spread across the lands, the balance of power began to tilt. The night no longer belonged to wolves alone. It now belonged to the moon herself. The night the queen's shadow returned, the royal citadel did not sleep. The air itself grew restless, heavy with murmurs of the impossible. Servants whispered in corners, guards tightened their grip on spears, and councilmen met behind sealed doors. The moon hung unnaturally low above the palace towers, bright, vast, and watching. It felt less like light and more like judgment. In the throne room, the Alpha King sat in silence, his hands gripping the arms of his seat as though holding onto a crumbling world. The whisper of her voice still lingered in his ears. The moon's mercy has not forgotten you. Her scent, soft and haunting, clung to the air. He stared up at the great silver sigil carved above his throne, the symbol of his lineage. Once it filled him with pride. Now it burned like accusation. The moon had chosen another, his son, and the pack knew it. Beyond the castle walls, rival alphas gathered in secret councils. The message spread faster than wildfire. The Queen's heir lives, and he bears the moon's mark. To some, that meant salvation. To others, it was the end of the king's reign. An alpha who loses the moon's favor cannot lead, growled Alpha Dagon of the Eastern Pack, his eyes glinting with greed. The moon's heir is the true successor. The throne must fall. By dawn, the first challenge had been issued, a declaration of rebellion sent on black parchment sealed with blood. The king's advisor placed it before him, trembling. They are rallying under the prophecy, the advisor said. Even your council questions your right to rule. They say the moon has spoken. The king's jaw tightened. The moon speaks in riddles, not commands. But the people, they see signs everywhere. The night wolves have turned restless. Even the elders. Enough. His voice cracked through the chamber like thunder, though sorrow dulled its edge. He rose slowly, the weight of the crown pressing harder than ever. Let them come. Let them test the throne built by my blood. If fate seeks to unmake me, it will find I do not surrender easily. Yet even as he spoke, the golden circlet upon his brow shimmered faintly under the moonlight. A thin crack, barely visible, ran across it, splitting the crest at its center. He didn't notice, but the advisor did. His eyes widened in dread. Outside, the winds howled. The moon's glow spread over the citadel, silver light crawling like vines through every crack in the stone. The sigils of the royal crest began to fade, as though the light itself was stripping away the authority once granted by darkness. Far from the palace, Aaron stood on a ridge overlooking the valley, the silver wolf beside him. He could feel the shift in the air, the pulse of rebellion, the scent of fear. The markings on his arms shimmered again, and for the first time he understood their message. The moon was not just awakening him, it was choosing him. He looked toward the horizon, where the castle stood beneath the trembling moon. The crown is breaking, he murmured. The wolf's golden eyes turned toward the same light, and deep within the palace walls, the king looked down at his trembling hands, silver dust clinging to his fingertips, and whispered, "So it begins." The world held its breath. Between father and son, the same moon glowed, one throne crumbling beneath its light, one destiny rising in its fire. Aaron's heartbeat pounded like thunder in his chest. The markings on his arms, once faint and graceful, now flared with searing brilliance. Silver veins raced across his skin, glowing like living light beneath the surface. He fell to his knees on the ridge, gasping as the wolf beside him howled, a long, mournful cry that echoed through the valley. "Control it," he muttered through clenched teeth. "You have to control it." But the moon had other plans. A sudden rush of energy shot through him, sending a shockwave that rippled across the ground. Trees bent under the invisible force. Pebbles lifted and hovered before scattering like stars. His eyes, blazing with pure lunar silver, reflected the entire night sky. For a brief moment, the moon itself seemed to answer his agony, flaring brighter in the heavens. Far away in the royal palace, the Alpha King felt the tremor. The silver dust on his hands ignited briefly, then vanished. He turned toward the window, where the moon loomed larger than ever. "The air awakens," a voice whispered through the wind, a voice that sounded eerily like the Queen's. Aaron stumbled to his feet, his breath heavy, his vision blurred by bursts of white light. The silver wolf pressed its head against his hand, trying to steady him. Its eyes, deep and knowing, glowed with the same sacred energy. Then, without warning, it turned and began to walk toward the mountains. Aaron hesitated only a moment before following. "You're leading me somewhere," he whispered. The path wound through mist and stone, each step guided by the soft radiance of the moon. The air grew colder, denser, alive with unseen presence. When they reached the crest, he saw it, an ancient ruin carved into the face of the mountain, glowing faintly with silver runes. The Moon Temple. Legends had spoken of it, where the first alphas once communed with the goddess herself. No living soul had found it in generations, yet here it stood waiting. As he stepped inside, a whisper filled the air, soft but commanding. "Child of silver blood, you are not born to destroy the throne, but to cleanse it." Aaron fell to his knees, the markings on his body aligning with the ancient symbols on the floor. Streams of light connected them. He became part of the temple itself, the living vessel of its power. Visions flooded his mind. The queen, radiant and sorrowful. The king, lost between guilt and pride. The packs divided by fear. He saw the future, the world trembling on the edge of war, and understood his purpose. When the light finally dimmed, his breathing steadied. The markings on his skin had changed, now sharper, forming the crescent sigil of the moon's guardian. Aaron stood, no longer just a son of the fallen queen. He was her legacy made flesh, the living will of the moon. Outside, the silver wolf howled once more, and the wind carried its sound straight to the palace. The king lifted his head. His heart trembled as he whispered, "So the moon has chosen." And in the silence that followed, the moon's light fell between them like a sword dividing past from destiny. The silence after the moon's song was almost unbearable. The air inside the ancient moon temple felt still, as if time itself were holding its breath. The faint glow of the crescent sigil on Aaron's arm pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, casting ripples of light across the cracked stone floor. Then the temperature dropped. The wolf at his side let out a low growl, its fur bristling. Aaron turned toward the sacred mirror at the temple's center, a relic older than the first pack, said to show only what the moon desired to reveal. Tonight, under the shadow of an approaching lunar eclipse, the surface began to shimmer. At first, he saw only his reflection, tired eyes, silver veins, the weight of destiny. But then the image shifted. The light around him dimmed until only the mirror glowed, and from its depths, her face emerged. "Mother." His voice broke on the word. Her reflection smiled faintly, though her eyes were full of sorrow and strength. "My son," she whispered, her voice echoing like wind through stars. "You found the path I could not finish." Aaron stepped closer, trembling. "Are you real? Or is this another test from the moon?" "I am what remains of me," she said softly. "When the moon claimed my soul, it left an echo here, a spirit bound by purpose not yet fulfilled." The reflection flickered, revealing flashes of her final moments. Her defiance before the king, the glow of the moon's mark, and the whisper that changed destiny. Tears welled in Aaron's eyes. "You suffered because of me." Her image shook her head gently. "I lived for you, Aaron. And now, you must live for them." The packs are divided not by blood but by blindness. The moon's light reveals all, but only those willing to see can follow it. The temple trembled as the eclipse reached its peak. The moon turned red, bathing the chamber in crimson silver light. The mirror pulsed once, twice, then expanded, becoming a window into the realm between life and spirit. Aaron reached out instinctively, his fingers brushing the surface. It rippled like water, and suddenly her hand made of light met his. Power surged between them, pure and ancient. Her voice grew stronger, carrying both love and warning. "The moon's plan is not yet complete. My death was the beginning, not the end. There is one still bound by guilt, the king, and one bound by greed, the shadow alpha. You must face them both, or the prophecy of silver blood will die unfulfilled. The wolf howled as the temple's runes blazed alive again. The mirror began to crack, splintering under the strain of divine energy. "Mother, wait!" Erin cried, gripping her fading hand. She smiled one last time, her voice barely a whisper now. "Remember, my son, the moon does not choose the strongest, it chooses the truest." And with that, her reflection shattered into 1,000 beams of light that spiraled into Erin's chest, merging with his heartbeat. The sigil on his arm ignited once more, no longer just silver, but edged with crimson fire. When the light faded, he stood alone before the cracked mirror. His reflection now bore her same calm, unwavering gaze. The lunar eclipse ended, and the first rays of dawn touched the temple walls. Erin exhaled slowly, eyes lifting toward the horizon. "The spirit may have left the mirror," he whispered, "but her purpose lives in me." The wolf pressed its head against his leg, and together they stepped into the morning light, toward a world trembling under the weight of prophecy. The morning after the eclipse carried a silence too deep to trust. Every gust of wind whispered warnings, every shadow seemed to listen. The silver wolf padded beside Erin as they descended the temple steps, its golden eyes fixed ahead, alert, protective, knowing. Erin could still feel her warmth within him, the echo of her final words pulsing through his veins. The moon does not choose the strongest, it chooses the truest. But now, the truth was a heavy crown he didn't yet know how to bear. The world below was already stirring. From the ridges, Erin saw distant smoke rising from campfires, scouts, spies, or perhaps enemies. Word of his awakening had spread faster than Moonlight. The packs were restless, some fearing him, others waiting to see if the legend was true. He needed guidance, someone who understood the old ways better than the warring alphas, someone bound not by blood, but by faith. As though in answer to that thought, the wind shifted. The scent of moon herbs, sweet and sharp, filled the air. The wolf froze, ears twitching. Then a voice, soft and melodic, drifted through the mist. "You walk with her light," it said, "and yet you carry her fire." Erin turned sharply. From between the silver pines a woman emerged, cloaked in flowing white that shimmered faintly as if woven from moonlight itself. Her eyes were a strange mix of silver and violet, glowing with quiet knowing. "Who are you?" he demanded, though his voice trembled with both curiosity and caution. She smiled faintly. "One who was not meant to exist." He frowned. "You're a priestess." "Yes," she replied, bowing her head. "Of the lunar order, the last of them. We were forbidden long ago, banished when the kings feared the truth we served. The moon temple you entered? My sisters once kept it alive." Erin's breath caught. "Then you know what happened inside?" "I felt it," she whispered, stepping closer. "The spirit that touched you, her light reached even through time. She was powerful and kind. Her son must be the same." Erin hesitated, studying her. "Why would you risk approaching me? If your order was outlawed, helping me could mean death." The priestess met his gaze without fear. "Because prophecy outweighs law, and the moon is stirring again. The packs have forgotten reverence. They fight for thrones and pride. But I see what's coming. Erin of the silver blood. The shadow alpha gathers strength. The king's crown fractures. Only unity can save us now." She raised her hand and revealed a small, crescent-shaped relic, its surface engraved with the same symbols that marked Erin's skin. "Take this. It is the moon's seal, one half of what was broken when your mother fell. You carry the other half, within you. Together they awaken what has long been sleeping beneath these lands." Erin reached out slowly, his fingers brushing the relic. A pulse of light flared between them, warm, ancient, binding. "The moon accepts our pact," she murmured, bowing deeply. "But understand this. Once joined with me, you stand outside the laws of all pacts. They will call it treason. They will call it blasphemy." Aaron's gaze hardened, silver fire flickering in his eyes. Then let them call it what they wish. If the moon stands with us, we need no king's approval. The wolf howled softly, the sound echoing like a vow across the mountains. The wind rose, swirling silver dust around them as the priestess lifted her hood. Then our alliance, she said, is sealed beneath the moon's witness. And as the light washed over them, two forgotten destinies intertwined, one born of royal blood, the other of forbidden faith, both bound to reshape the fate of every pack beneath the stars. The silver winds quieted, leaving behind an eerie stillness. The air around Aaron shimmered faintly, as though the moon itself was watching from beyond the veil. The priestess lowered her hood, her violet silver eyes solemn. "It has begun," she said softly. "The moon has accepted your vow, but it demands proof." Aaron frowned. "Proof of what?" "Of worthiness," she replied. "Every heir touched by lunar power must undergo the trial of light and shadow. It reveals not only who you are, but what you are willing to lose." Before he could answer, the ground beneath them pulsed. The crescent relic in his hand grew warm, glowing brighter until the world dissolved into silver mist. The wolf barked sharply, its outline flickering like light on water. The priestess's voice echoed faintly. "Remember, truth is not always mercy." And then she was gone. Aaron blinked, finding himself standing in a vast, endless expanse. Above him stretched a dark sky split in two, half silver light, half shadowed night. The air trembled with ancient power. The moon's realm, he realized, the space between fate and choice. Then from the light came a familiar figure, his mother, radiant and calm. From the darkness another emerged, the Alpha King cloaked in shadow, eyes filled with regret. Aaron's breath caught. "This can't be real." "It is real enough for your soul," his mother's voice said gently. "You must face both halves of your blood, the mercy that gave you life and the pride that broke it." The king's shadow stepped forward, his tone low and rough. "You think destiny crowns you? Power demands sacrifice, boy. If you seek to rule, you must bury the part of you that hesitates." The moon above them pulsed once, and two paths appeared before Aaron, one bathed in blinding light, the other in deep shadow. "Choose," the king said. "Light is mercy, shadow is might. You cannot walk both." Aaron looked between them, his chest tightening. The light's warmth promised peace, healing, forgiveness. But the shadow's pull was undeniable. It offered strength, dominion, vengeance for all the pain his mother endured. The wolf's voice echoed faintly in his mind. "The moon tests balance, not blindness." Aaron clenched his fists. "I will not choose one half. The moon didn't make me light or darkness. It made me both." The sky above thundered. Light and shadow clashed violently, spiraling toward him. The markings on his body blazed, half silver, half black. Agony seared through every vein as the two forces collided inside him. "Do not fight it," his mother's voice urged. "Accept both," he screamed, falling to his knees as power surged through him, terrifying, divine, endless. His eyes flashed pure white for an instant, then steadied into a strange dual glow, one silver, one obsidian. When the light finally receded, the realm around him began to dissolve. His mother's image smiled faintly. "You have passed, my son. You have become what even the moon feared, a balance between light and shadow." The king's shadow lingered a moment longer, his tone heavy with something close to respect. "Perhaps you are the crown I never was." And then they were gone. Aaron gasped as the real world rushed back. The temple ridge, the priestess, the wolf. The relic in his hand had transformed into a lunar crest of black and silver intertwined. The priestess knelt before him, awe in her voice. "You survived the trial," she whispered. "Then the moon has truly chosen." Aaron looked toward the horizon, where the first storm clouds gathered. "No," he said quietly. The moon hasn't finished with me yet." The wind carried his words far across the lands, to the Alpha King's citadel, where the shadow of rebellion darkened the throne. The words reached him in the quiet hour before dawn. "No," the voice had whispered through the cold wind. "The moon hasn't finished with me yet." The Alpha King jolted awake in his chamber, drenched in sweat. For a long moment he couldn't breathe. The fire had long burned to embers and moonlight spilled faintly across the marble floor, tracing his trembling hands. It wasn't a dream. It was his son's voice. He rose slowly, every movement burdened by memories that refused to die. The moment he turned away from the woman who bore his child, the look in her eyes as the moon claimed her, and the echo of the prophecy he dismissed as myth. Now, everything he'd feared was coming to pass. The packs were rebelling, the sigils of his crown had dimmed, and even the moon's light no longer favored his throne. Yet somewhere deep inside, a faint hope flickered, the same hope that once lived in her eyes. He went to the throne room, where the advisor waited, pale and weary. "My king," the man said quietly, bowing low. "Another pack has defected to the Shadow Alpha. He claims the moon's heir is unfit, that the child's bloodline is cursed." The king closed his eyes. "No," he said softly. "The curse is mine." He walked past the advisor and placed his hands on the cold stone of the throne. The once golden crest had lost its luster. Faint cracks ran through its surface, mirroring the one that ran through his spirit. "I cannot fight this war with steel," he murmured. "It was born of my sins, not his." The advisor hesitated. "What do you intend to do?" The king looked up toward the fading moonlight streaming through the high windows. "What I should have done long ago. Seek my son." Gasps filled the room as he stripped the royal cloak from his shoulders. Gone was the regal Alpha King. In his place stood a man, weathered, scarred, and humbled. "I will not go as a ruler," he said, voice low but steady. "I will go as a father asking for forgiveness." The advisor's voice trembled. "Sire, the council will see this as weakness." "Then let them," the king replied. "I have lived too long trying to appear strong." He stepped into the courtyard where his war horses waited, the first rays of dawn cutting through the mist. As he mounted, the ancient wolf sigil above the gates flickered, a faint silver glow that hadn't been seen in years. The guards bowed silently, understanding that something greater than duty was unfolding. As he rode through the forest paths, memories haunted him. Her laughter, her defiance, her final words, "The moon sees through pride." He had been blind to her truth, deaf to her love. But now, perhaps, redemption lay not in ruling, but in bowing. When night returned, the moon rose full and watchful. The king dismounted, standing before the valley that led to the moon temple. He could feel his son's energy there, raw, divine, and alive. He dropped to his knees on the cold earth, looking up at the glowing sky. "My son," he whispered, "I do not seek your forgiveness to ease my shame. I seek it because your mother's light deserves peace. I was the darkness that broke her, but if the moon wills it, I will be the shadow that shields you." A soft wind swept through the trees, carrying a faint echo of a wolf's howl, a sound neither hostile nor distant but almost welcoming. The king bowed his head, tears slipping silently down his weathered face. Somewhere beyond the mountains, Aaron stirred in his sleep, his mother's voice whispering through his dreams. "He is coming, not as a king, but as the man I once loved." The night that followed was heavy with omen. Clouds drifted across the full moon like veils of shadow, and the wind howled with the sound of restless spirits. Deep within the valley, Aaron woke abruptly, his breath sharp and his markings burning like fire beneath his skin. The wolf beside him growled low, its golden eyes flicked toward the horizon, where distant howls began to rise, dozens, then hundreds, blending into a symphony of rage and defiance. "They're coming," Aaron murmured, his voice edged with dread. The priestess stepped from the shadows of the moon temple, her cloak shimmering faintly. The Shadow Alpha has united them. Packs that once warred for territory now march under one banner, the promise of power. Erin's gaze hardened. They come for me. No, she said softly. They come for what you represent, the balance the moon restored. They fear what they cannot control. The earth trembled. Far across the plains, flickers of torchlight appeared like stars falling from the mountains. The air vibrated with growls, drums, and the ancient war chants of wolves who had forgotten faith. Eren closed his eyes, and the mark on his arm flared silver and crimson. Then we stand where the moon can see us. By the time the enemy reached the valley's edge, the full moon hung high, turning every blade of grass to silver. Eren stood at the center of the field, the priestess beside him and the great wolf, his silent guardian, watchful and still. From the opposing ridge, a massive figure stepped forward, the Shadow Alpha, his fur dark as ash, his eyes gleaming blood red. The air seemed to warp around him, the scent of decay thick and suffocating. Silver air, the Shadow Alpha roared, his voice echoing through the mountains. You carry a curse, not a crown. The moon's power belongs to no half-blood whelp. Eren's voice rang out clear, calm, and strong. If you think the moon's light can be stolen, then you have never seen it burn. With a snarl, the Shadow Alpha raised his hand, and the united packs surged forward. Hundreds of wolves, claws glinting, eyes blazing, howled as one. The ground shook under their fury. Eren spread his arms, eyes flashing with silver fire. Then let the moon judge us all. Light exploded across the valley. Silver tendrils burst from the sky, forming a radiant dome that clashed with the shadows rushing toward it. Each strike against it sent ripples of energy through the air, light and darkness wrestling for dominion. The priestess raised her hands, chanting ancient words. The moon symbol on her forehead blazed bright, sending waves of energy toward Eren. Together they stood as conduits of divine will, one bound by destiny, one by faith. Still, the enemy pressed closer. The Shadow Alpha himself charged, his claws trailing black fire, his roar shaking the earth. He struck the silver dome, and for a moment, the moon's light faltered. Eren staggered, pain searing his veins. He saw flashes of his mother's face, his father's crown, and the prophecy carved into the temple walls. Child of silver blood, unite what was broken. With a desperate cry, he plunged his hand into the ground. The markings on his body burst alive, spreading like wildfire through the soil. Silver roots erupted across the battlefield, turning to radiant chains that bound the Shadow Alpha mid-strike. By the moon's decree, Eren roared, this war ends tonight. The light consumed everything, the sky, the mountains, the screams, and when it faded, silence followed. Wolves lay scattered across the field, stunned but alive. The Shadow Alpha knelt in the ashes, his power broken. Above them the moon blazed pure and clear, its shadow gone. From the hills beyond, the Alpha King arrived, his armor dusted with travel, his eyes filled with awe. He saw his son standing beneath the moon's full light, neither human nor beast, but something greater, a bridge between all that once was divided. The king dismounted, falling to his knees. My son, he whispered, you have done what I could not. Eren turned, the light fading from his eyes. Then let this war mark its end, not another beginning. The moon shone brighter, as if in agreement, bathing father and son in one eternal beam of light, 2 generations united beneath its watchful eye. But in the distance, beneath the ashes of defeat, a faint pulse of darkness lingered, waiting. The light of the moon lingered like a blessing over the valley, but Eren could still feel it, an echo beneath the silence, a heartbeat that did not belong to him. The silver roots that had bound the Shadow Alpha began to tremble, then crumble into dust. Something ancient stirred beneath the earth, older than the war, older than the crown. Eren fell to one knee, clutching his chest. The markings along his body flickered wildly, no longer steady silver but a chaotic blend of light and shadow. She's calling, he whispered. The priestess turned sharply. Who? Before he could answer, the wind rose, soft at first, then carrying a low hum that resonated like 1,000 whispers speaking the same word. Queen. The moon above pulsed once. The clouds parted, and from the center of the battlefield, where blood had met silver light, a figure began to form, woven from mist, moonlight, and memory. Aaron stumbled back, his eyes wide. Mother? Her form grew clearer, silver hair that shimmered like flowing light, eyes glowing with divine calm, and a presence so powerful that even the wolves bowed instinctively. The Alpha King dropped to his knees, trembling. Luna, you live. She smiled faintly, her voice both gentle and commanding. I was never gone, only waiting, until the moon's air restored balance. Aaron took a hesitant step forward, his heart pounding. You're real? She reached out, her hand warm when it touched his cheek. More than you can know. The veil between realms thinned when your light met the darkness. I crossed through it, because the world is not yet healed. The priestess bowed low, tears glimmering in her eyes. The divine has returned to flesh. But the queen's gaze darkened. The moon restored me for a purpose. The darkness that slept beneath the battlefield was not destroyed. It was sealed. The Shadow's master still watches from beyond the veil. The ground rumbled faintly, as though to confirm her words. The moon's glow wavered, and for a heartbeat, a shadow passed across her face. Aaron clenched his fists. Then let me fight it. Let me finish what began with you. Her smile carried pride and sorrow. You will not fight it alone. The bond between moon and mortal must now merge as one. My spirit will dwell within you, not to control, but to guide. The Alpha King rose, alarmed. Luna, if you merge with him, your form will fade again. She looked at him softly. A mother's duty is to protect her child. A queen's duty is to protect her realm. Both call me now. Aaron's eyes shimmered with tears. If this is the only way. She placed her palm over his heart. The sigils on his skin flared to life, forming a radiant crown of light that circled his head. Silver energy poured from her form into his, merging flesh and spirit. The air turned blindingly bright. Wolves howled as the heavens opened, the moon's full light streaming down in one concentrated beam. The wind roared, the ground split. Even the stars seemed to bow. When the brilliance faded, Aaron stood alone in the center of the valley, his eyes now silver and gold intertwined, his aura radiant yet serene. The queen's form had vanished, but her voice lingered in the air, gentle and eternal. The moon does not leave her children orphaned. She lives within every light that dares to rise against the dark. The Alpha King fell silent, tears streaking his face. He bears her mark, and her spirit. The priestess knelt before Aaron. Then the prophecy is fulfilled. The queen has returned, not to rule, but to live through the air of her light. Aaron looked up at the moon, his heart both heavy and strong. If her spirit walks within me, then her war becomes mine, and I will not rest until the last shadow bows to her peace. Far beyond the valley, deep in the unseen realm, a voice hissed from the void. So, the queen rises again, then the true war begins. The whisper from the void echoed long after the light faded. Aaron stood motionless beneath the trembling moon, his pulse thrumming with new power, his mother's spirit flowing through his veins like liquid silver. Yet behind the brilliance, a chill crept into his bones. Something ancient had awakened, something watching. The Alpha King approached slowly, his cloak torn and face shadowed with sorrow. Aaron, he said softly, his voice trembling, do you feel it too? Aaron turned, his eyes now shifting between silver and gold. Yes, the darkness isn't gone. It's waiting, testing. The air around them thickened, the horizon rippling with strange distortions, fractures between realms. The priestess gasped as streaks of black light began to lace through the sky, devouring starlight. "The veil is weakening," she whispered. "The moon's balance is collapsing." From deep within Aaron's chest, the queen's voice murmured, soft, maternal, yet edged with divine urgency. "The eclipse of crowns has begun. If unity does not rise, all will fall." The Alpha King dropped to his knees, his heart heavy with guilt. "It's my fault. I broke the bond between moon and throne when I betrayed her. My sin created the fracture." Aaron shook his head, gripping his father's arm. "Then help me mend it, not as king and heir, but as family." The moon flared once as if approving his words, but before peace could settle, the ground split open. Shadows erupted, tall, faceless wraiths crowned with twisted halos of flame. Their presence reeked of ancient malice. "Servants of the void," the priestess breathed. "They've crossed over." Aaron's markings ignited in response, glowing brighter with every step he took toward the encroaching horde. "Mother, guide me." Her voice resonated through him like a heartbeat. "You are my vessel now. My strength is yours, but so is my burden. Do not fight the darkness with rage. Rule it with light." The first wraith lunged, and Aaron raised his hand. A column of pure lunar fire burst forth, striking the creature down in an explosion of silver sparks. The battlefield blazed with otherworldly brilliance as he fought, each movement precise, almost divine. But with every strike, the shadow seemed to grow smarter, bending, adapting, learning. The Alpha King drew his blade and joined him, his once golden aura flickering with fierce determination. Father and son fought side by side, light and steel clashing against the unending dark. Yet even united, the tide refused to break. The sky above began to shift, the moon bleeding into shadow, the sun dimming behind an unnatural veil. The world fell into twilight. The queen's voice trembled within Aaron. "No, not yet. The eclipse is premature. Someone is forcing it." From the fissures rose a figure cloaked in living darkness, its face hidden, but its crown unmistakable. A crown made of bone and broken light. The Alpha King's eyes widened. "Impossible. That crown was destroyed ages ago." The figure's voice rippled through both worlds. "You dare defy the will of the abyss? Then your thrones, moon, blood, and flesh, shall all bow." The sky roared. Lightning split the heavens in black and silver. Aaron stumbled, his energy flickering as the darkness surged toward him. Then his mother's spirit surged within him, her tone now fierce. "You are not alone. Together, we are light." The Alpha King stepped forward, placing a trembling hand on his son's shoulder. "And where light fails, I will shield you." Aaron looked from his father to the fractured sky and whispered, "Then let the crowns unite." Their auras, gold, silver, and lunar white, merged into a blinding radiance, pushing back the shadow for one heartbeat of eternity. The moon and sun aligned perfectly above them, forming a blazing eclipse that illuminated both realms. And from within that sacred light, 3 voices spoke as one, Mother, Father, and Son, declaring to the darkness, "We are the crown eternal, and the moon's light does not yield." The shadow recoiled, but its laughter lingered low and mocking. "Then let the final dawn decide which crown will rule." The light dimmed, leaving the battlefield in eerie silence once more. The eclipse had begun, and the true war for both realms had just been born. For a long moment the world was silent. The air trembled with the fading echo of the eclipse, the scent of smoke and silver dust mingling in the wind. Aaron stood at the heart of the field where 2 realms had collided, his aura still faintly pulsing with lunar fire. Around him wolves knelt, not in fear, but in reverence. The moon broke free of the shadow's grasp, its light softer now, pure and endless. The darkness had retreated, but the cost of victory lingered in every breath. The Alpha King dropped to one knee beside his son, exhaustion etched into his face. "You did it." he said hoarsely. You fulfilled the prophecy. Aaron's gaze rose to the heavens, where the last traces of the eclipse dissolved into dawn. No, Father, he murmured. We did it. Within him, his mother's voice whispered, a calm that felt like moonlight touching water. The circle is complete, my child. The moon's blood flows in balance again. But remember, peace is not the absence of darkness, it is the mastery of it. Her words settled over him like a blessing. Slowly, Aaron raised his hands. Silver sigils rippled across his skin, glowing in perfect harmony. The ground beneath him responded, shifting from blackened ash to living earth. Grass sprouted, flowers bloomed in lunar patterns, and the air filled with the sound of renewal. All across the realm, packs that once warred now lifted their heads to the same moon. A silver beam descended, touching every heart that bore the mark of the wolf. The healing had begun. The priestess approached, tears glistening in her eyes. The prophecy of silver blood has been fulfilled, she said. The moon's heir reigns not by conquest but by light. Aaron looked to his father, then extended his hand. Your crown was built on strength. Mine will stand on unity. Let us rebuild together. The Alpha King hesitated, then took his son's hand. A surge of light passed between them, dissolving the invisible chains of guilt and regret that had haunted him since Luna's death. His eyes softened, and for the first time in years, he bowed, not as a ruler, but as a father. Long live the Silver King. The wolves howled as the moon glowed brighter, signaling the dawn of a new era, the Silver Reign. Temples were rebuilt in honor of the moon's mercy. The packs gathered under one banner, their old grudges buried in the soil of forgiveness. Even the stars seemed to burn with renewed clarity, as if the heavens themselves had chosen to watch over this fragile peace. But amid the joy and rebirth, Aaron's expression remained distant. He could still feel the faint pulse of something beyond the veil, the whisper of the darkness that had not been destroyed, only silenced. His mother's spirit stirred within him once more. The reign begins with light, but remember, my son, every crown casts a shadow. The peace you forge must be guarded, not taken for granted. Aaron lifted his gaze to the moon, its glow reflected in his silver eyes. Then so be it. Let this reign stand as a promise, that no darkness will ever again divide us. The wind carried his words across the realm, and every wolf lifted their head in unison, howling beneath the moon's eternal light. The world was reborn. But in the farthest corner of the forgotten realm, beyond where the moon's glow reached, a pair of crimson eyes opened in the dark, and a voice hissed, "Peace is merely the silence before the storm."